Cool. Maybe for a while, let's go to your own projects. And going through all of them, I was fascinated that being into glass, your diploma work actually wasn't about glass. Surprising moment. Why?
Yeah. Well, it was a long way to go, a really long way, and it took me ages to encourage my school to let me do such thing. And so it started with the fact that I wanted to continue with a project which was so complimented in Czech Republic. It was the light design I did there, and I just have this lovely material development which I did with antique glass sheets and creating a block out of them. And it was I had a really lovely compliment from Ronnie saying that, if I would have worked with that material and I would develop that by myself, I wouldn't do anything else in my whole life. So I was like, okay, that's a nice idea to have. So I wanted to continue with that. And when it was the point to decide what to do, the head of the institution came to me because he always loved that fact. I'm kind of hated in the school, but he always had trust in me. So he was always overviewing my career and he was supporting. But it's really, really strange to have support from someone who's actually not able to help you out in certain situations. But I had I had a lovely conversation with him. He's Farkas. I'm obsessed with him because he's I think the biggest supporter of mine in school. And I told him what's my plan and whom I would like to ask as a mentor for my whole project. And he was upset about the person I mentioned. And he said that, okay, you are coming to my office in 5 minutes. And, brainwashing conversation came. And this is pretty much how things are working in a post-communist country, Yeah. But in general, he said that he asked about what's my plan, and I told him I would like to go through this material development, and I would like to get this person, I don't want to say his name, but you will realize why, as my mentor. And he said, I think this project is pretty much as valuable as something to do as your doctoral thing, and I wouldn't mess it with just the MA thing. And also he said that, you need a better and wiser advisor than this guy you are about to pick. And I was like, okay, well, I'm without any team, and what can I do? Because, one way to take this compliment is that not to use this method just for the MA diploma, because here we have this strict system of that if you are doing something as your MA diploma work, the work belongs to school and actually the property of the state. And they are pretty strict about that. So I think it was also about, that to save my idea for myself rather than having this stuck situation, not being able to work with that any longer. And so I had a really weird semester in my school, which was about porcelain manufacturer, which was always kind of faking design, and they wanted to improve in a way, but they never really wanted to work through. And this place was the Kolocha porcelain manufacturer, and Kolocha is a region which is really known for its embroidery work, and this is pretty much the type of pattern that you would always see in design fairs, not like design fairs, but what they call like folk art design or whatever. And this is always somewhat a symbol of Hungary, and it is shaped in really bad ways, and it was developing from a point in a really ridiculous way, and it just kind of sticked on the Hungarian overall experience as a really unwanted sticker. And so I really wanted to design something which is actually engaged with all my experiences, how you can lovelily touch the field of tradition and the field of rethinking tradition, which I gained a lot in Czech Republic, because you have amazing examples for that. And just to say, this whole movement is Maxim Welchowski, and basically I would say 50% of his portfolio is just about that, in different ways, obviously, but in general, I would so I just felt that now I have the gut and also the way of thinking how I can actually add something to this whole conversation. And so I again try to approach this manufacturer, but they were pretty much like reserved, and they didn't really wanted to kind of collaborate. But in general, I really wanted to do this project because I also had some personal enforcement to do that, because in our family we have the third generation who is doing embroidery cupping techniques. So basically when you are pre-printing the embroidery motifs for ladies to do the stitching, or I think it's stitching, I hope so. And so so I was kind of pretty amazed by the collection we have as a family, and also I was stoned by the fact that we have our lovely motifs here in this region, which is called Rábaközi, and no one is about to look for that. Everyone is about to get different type of motifs, and it was always about Kolocha, which is a region which is not ours, and you just feel that it is almost like a cultural appropriation within a country, and it feels like unnecessary, and also like you are kind of just showing off your Hungarian pride in a way, and it became the symbol of that as well. And I think it's quite disturbing, and I do believe your national heritage is important, but I think it is really good in a certain level and in a certain way, and not really when you are using this ideologically stickly, if I can dare to say that. And so I really wanted to somewhat stick with those materials, but as well try to develop some sort of abstraction which can provide those motifs in a different view. And also, I think, obviously through Maxim's work, I got to know the phase what Adolf Loos said about motifs, like it's crime and all those things he didn't like about decorating in general. And I just thought that maybe I can use the pattern as something what actually serves and can provide a function. So in my designs, all those cutouts are basically the mouth or the entering parts for the flowers to get into the vase. And also in the way how you can basically put the flowers into those vases is that you are filling a 3D object, which is almost behaving like as a canvas, and gives some sort of a background for flowers in general, and maybe approaching flower arranging in a different and more playful way. And you know, in general, I always loved vases. And you know, we sometimes joke about Umprum as the place where mostly in the silicate arts department, like 70 or even 90% of the works are vases, because this is actually the platform that you can really use in applied arts to show off, just like a brush in metal design. And so I was always fascinated by vases, but I always felt that they are stealing the show. And I really wanted to create something which is actually supporting flowers and actually tries to serve rather than like, you know, get into your face.
Well, this is definitely a long and interesting story, like from the beginning, from the first plans through these conversations. You mentioned. But I got an idea that there is an obvious connection with maybe the exhibition you prepared for the art studio in Prague, that everything is about interaction of the object and how the how the person, the user, uses it. Because there it was about, like, you know, watching in a different way, having more dimensions of the exhibition. Here, it's about yet another ways. But you can decorate the flowers in many different ways. The final product is not the vase itself, but the vase plus interaction of
but the interaction
goes through all your designs.
I would say so, but not always in a really direct way, I would say. And it was really funny. One time I got this critique from a fellow student, and he said that, you know what, I think your portfolio holds together because nothing holds together. And this really left me behind thinking, like, I do believe there is a cohesive core of my portfolio, but I couldn't really articulate it straight away. And I do believe now, and I'm pretty sure about that, the cohesive part of my portfolio is that I always want to interact in the way that I would love to show ways of understanding through my works. And it is always about that I would like to encourage the viewer to understand a certain topic I was working about. And it's always about somewhat engaging with the audience. So I think in general, I believe that design or art is better when you are trying to attract the viewer in a way, because basically you are having an audience to speak to. Yep. And if it's just about, like, you know, like you are basically working for the audience of yourself. And I am pretty much not the person who would like to have conversation with myself, because I already have it in my mind. And, you know, with objects, I would like to communicate with others. And also, I think objects are great to transform ideas. And I always felt that the three-dimensional objects are giving me the opportunity to abstract my way of thinking. And when you are actually coming from an idea which is like a shape and bodiless thing, it is amazing to turn it to 3D, because you just feel that there are maybe steps between 3D and the way of thinking. But I think in general, if you're kind of like skipping some steps, or if you are not seeing the whole process of making, it is fabulous to get from the idea to the three-dimensional object, and that can give you some sort of like misty clarity.
A few years after, finishing the school and finishing the diploma, work, you used the waste again for, a supportive project during the Corona crisis. Can you tell us a bit more, again, where did the idea come from? Or was it your idea or someone else promoted? Well, what about,
I would, yeah, I'm so happy to speak about it. And actually, my work is now 1 year old, so I just finished school in 2019. And the whole concept of this, the whole concept of this, let's step into the coronavirus crisis came from Zsuzsanna Kórodi. She's a fabulous, well-known, also loved by Ronnie Kessel.
Looks like Ronnie Kessel loves Hungarian girls.
I don't think they ever met. But, I know that he knows her by her body of work. And but yes, he has a reserved place for Hungarians in his heart, and I know why, because he told me. And it's about that. It's about that he's a friend who's Hungarian Slovak, and they basically rolled through their educational career, and they remained friends. And he's a fabulous guy. I think his name is Szalai Daniel, I guess. I hope I'm not mistaken. But basically, he is the reason. He's the reason. So Zsuzsanna wanted to step into this whole madness, and she was, I think, all the time a bit stressed out by the fact that she wished to help, but as a fine artist, she never really got the sense how to do so. And since all the exhibitions which were planned got cancelled, and also the artworks were kind of like homeless, which were created, she felt that it's nice to dedicate one piece and try to help out one hospital with the income, which can be did through an online auction. And she succeeded with that, and that work got sold. And some of us also stepped in, but since it really didn't gain the attention what we wanted to gain, most of the things didn't really got sold. And it's also about that when we try to contact also the hospitals we wanted to help, also the majors of the towns we wanted to reach with that kind of I think I would say revolutionary idea. They were pretty closed and reserved, and they were not supportive at all. But in general, this thing is still slowly operating, and some works got sold, and some of them are really not. And it is kind of a tricky situation, because most of the people are still in the, the kind of the state of mind that they would rather not really pay for artworks right now, because it's just too uncertain. But in general, I think it is really a great example of how the whole nation coped with the virus. So I think it is a shining example. But in general, it is really lovely to see how when it really looks like the state is not coping well, the people hold together. And I think this is the main thing, what is really remaining as the shining point of this whole crisis for us Hungarians. Most of us were glass designers who tried to step into and, supporting a fellow artist and following her footsteps. So we tried, but basically I think glass or porcelain in general is just too pricey for that. So I know that one graphic work was also sold, and it was ink work and paper. So when I think the material is not that pricey, just or saying that just the value of your idea is the thing what you are about to pay for, then I think it can be a bit more successful. And also, if you really gather people and gather artists to have an actual auction rather than like a piece by piece auction, like popping up and up, maybe it's a bit better. But in general, I think it was really a nice experience and also a nice try. And in general, we have really successful ways of doing those supporting auctions, and one of them is the Smile auction, which is also organized each and every year, and it is something what gathers a lot of designers and artists, and actually having an event for auction for all the interested ones who are willing to bid. But we had a really nice example of Corona auction thing, and I'm proud to say that it is from our metal designer graduates, and they followed the footsteps of the Italian crown auction. I don't know if you heard about it, but it was a jewelry auction which was organized by a bunch of jewelers in Italy to help the situation. And you know, you have this kind of lovely, almost the same sense of the jewel of a crown, and crown what creates a crisis. So it was a kind of a handy and catchy name to have, sadly. But in Italy, they succeed with this thing, and since there was one Hungarian designer who joined the organizer team for this Italian event, the Hungarians started to also organize their own, and they also did this crown auction, and it was last week, and they were offering, I think 80 artists offered pieces of jewelry to help, and they organized it for helping 3 childcare related organizations, and artists were mostly from here, from Hungary, but also some Germans and I think Portuguese entered, and they gained and raised 1.8 million forints for those organizations, which is a pretty unexpected and amazing amount of money, which went to those for those 3 organizations. I just wanted to say that it is really amazing, but I think if you are a designer, you also should be aware about that, what you put out, and what is obviously a generous move is also something which is an advertisement for you. And you know, the bigger audience gets to know you through those generous things, they are pretty much convinced about that you are one of the designers and one of the humans who definitely deserve to be seen. Yep. So I think it is obviously an amazing opportunity and also a lovely payoff for everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I would like to mention one more project I saw on your webpage, which I was like fascinated with, and that's the sandblast.
Happy to hear.
Yeah, that was the sandblast. You know, which basically, to explain, it's an object for measuring the time, but we are used to the fact that it works the same once you turn it off to the other side, so that the time is still the same. In your case, actually not really. One way the sand measures 4 minutes, and the other way it measures 4 seconds. Am I right?
Yes, exact. Yeah.
Fascinating thing for me, actually. Can you tell me a bit more about the project? Was there some
yes.
like a need of such a thing, or it was just a spontaneous idea?
Basically, it was called by the fact that we had to design something that measures time. And I was pretty much about usually time doesn't feel the same if you are in the things. And so it can really feel like 10 times longer and such. And also I was fascinated by the fact that when you are thinking about a sand glass, it is usually about that you are just watching this really thin stream of sand going down, and I just felt that it can be even more fascinating when you are actually extruding this experience. So in my design, I used the regular way of just having this one little stream of sand for the 4 minutes. But for the 4 seconds, it is really like a waterfall out of sand. And I just really wanted to create the design in a logical way. So all the time when you are turning it around on one direction, it will be always just capturing the minutes, and the other way around, it will always just capture the seconds. And I think this kind of flipper movement is what makes it interesting, and also the way the aesthetical appearance is interesting for me, because I really wanted to show that off. All those elements, what are inside, are actually essential part of the design. So basically it shows the operation and the logic behind the work, because if you have glass to use, you are likely to let the viewer see what's going on. But basically I wanted to create a frosted object that is sometimes hiding its meaning, hiding its function. So if the light is not coming from one direction to another, it can really just look like as a sun-blasted block.
Please, next time coming to Ostrava, bring it with you, because I want to try it myself.
Yeah, well, I couldn't actually, because I was transporting this object. I mean, not transporting, but posting it, because when I got selected by Wallpaper as a newcomer, whatever, little star, like star as a symbol, I mean. They asked me to send 5 pieces, and I did. And I placed it in one box, and when they sent it back, all of them started to crash each other. So I got back a mix of glass, and yeah, it's not existing anymore.
Doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it was pretty amazingly disappointing, because you know, when you are thinking about the peak of design, you are thinking about wallpaper usually, and look who's not able to pack things properly, wallpaper. Yeah.
Well, that's a pity. So maybe some second version later on.
Yeah. Yes.
Diána, thank you very much for.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was a pleasure. Nice to hear so many positive comments about our country, about Prague, about the university there, about Czech designers as well. And good luck to Hungary. Enjoy the time as much as you can. And
thank you.
Everything what has been delayed will come up one day, and all the commissions will appear in your diary again.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope so too.
And hopefully see you one day in Ostrava.
Yes, I'm so planning to go there for this year as well.
Cool.
Thank you so much, and see you there.
Thank you. See you. Bye.
See you. Bye.